Tangled in Tuscany, Chapter 4, Grapes and Grudges. The morning air drifted in cool through the guesthouse shutters, carrying with it the scent of lemon leaves and the faint, earthy whisper of tilled soil. Sophia stirred reluctantly, her ankle pulsing a low, annoyed rhythm beneath the sheets. She opened her eyes to find sunlight pooling at the edge of the stone floor like honey, creeping up the legs of the desk where her camera gear sat tucked neatly in its case. Luca must have moved it last night. She hadn't remembered seeing it after he left, or hearing him come back. Not that she'd expected him to. After all, Luca D'Alessandro didn't linger. He appeared, said the bare minimum, and vanished like mist. And yet, he'd carried her. She remembered every second of it now, as vivid as if it had just happened. The strength in his arms, the steady way he'd walked, the strange sensation of being protected by someone who barely tolerated her presence. She hated how that had made her feel safe. And she hated even more that she didn't actually hate it. By the time Sophia managed to hobble into the kitchen, with the aid of a borrowed crutch Alessia had left by the door, she found the elder D'Alessandro humming softly to herself as she stirred something fragrant on the stove. Buongiorno, mia cara. Alessia beamed when she saw her. You're walking. Luca said you might rest today. Sophia settled into a chair near the window, wincing slightly as she bent her ankle. It's stubborn, like its owner. Then you'll get along just fine. Alessia handed her a warm ceramic mug filled with something rich and spiced. What is this? Vin brûlé. My version. Red wine, orange peel, a little clove. For blood and bone. Sophia sipped it tentatively, then smiled. This tastes like the holidays and rebellion. That's the correct response. Sophia watched the older woman move about the kitchen with effortless grace. She wanted to ask more about her, about Luca, about the vineyard. But before she could speak, Luca himself appeared in the archway. He wore his usual uniform, worn jeans, boots dusted with dirt, and a navy shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. He looked every bit the man who belonged in this world, and none of the man who wanted her in it. You're up, he said, a nod replacing any real greeting. I'm vertical. It's the small victories. Alessia clucked her tongue. You could have stayed in bed. I would have brought you breakfast. Then she would have missed my charming company. Luca added, pouring himself coffee with an expression that could only be described as somewhere between bored and suspicious. Sophia raised an eyebrow. So we're doing sarcasm before sunrise now. It's past 8. And here, I thought Tuscany was supposed to be relaxing. Depends who you're here with, he said, not looking at her, the edges of her lips curled. Good thing I have you to keep things lively. Alessia watched the exchange with an amused glint in her eye, but said nothing. Later that morning, Luca knocked on the guesthouse door with a clipboard in hand. I'm making adjustments to the irrigation schedule, he said. Thought you might want to see how the system works. There's no climbing or hiking involved, just buttons. And a drive? Sophia blinked. Are you inviting me on a vineyard field trip? Don't make it weird. It's already weird. He sighed. Are you coming or not? Give me 5 minutes. And help me into the truck, or I'll tell everyone at dinner you smile in your sleep. That earned her the ghost of a smirk. The drive through the lower vineyard roads was quiet at first, their shoulders brushing occasionally in the narrow cab of the truck. The windows were down, dust kicked up behind them in soft trails as they passed clusters of vines and the occasional hen darting across the path, like it had somewhere important to be. Sophia kept sneaking glances at Luca from the corner of her eye. He didn't speak much, he never did, but she was beginning to learn that his silences weren't all the same. Some were heavy, closed, pushing her away, but today's silence was something else. Companionable, maybe, or just less guarded. He finally pulled the truck up beside a small pump house and hopped out, walking around to her side. Before she could reach for the handle, he opened the door and offered his hand. She hesitated, her pride whispering, "You've got this." But her ankle throbbed in protest. She took his hand. "You're really enjoying this night in grape-stained armor roll, aren't you?" she said as he helped her down. He didn't answer, just released her hand with a firm, lingering pressure. Inside the pump house, the air was cool and mechanical. Pipes twisted along the walls, gauges blinked softly, and the faint hum of pressurized water buzzed like a distant heartbeat. Luca explained the basics: timing schedules, moisture sensors, weather predictions. Sophia listened, nodding occasionally, though her attention kept drifting toward the way he moved. Confident, efficient, focused. When he reached for a lever and paused mid-sentence, she asked, "You ever stop?" He turned. "Stop what?" "Working. Fixing. Running this place like it'll crumble if you blink." He looked at her for a long beat. "It will crumble if I blink." There was no pride in the way he said it. Just fact. She tilted her head. "That's a heavy way to live. It's the only way I know." "And the vineyard? Is it worth it?" He looked away, his jaw tightening. "It has to be." Sophia didn't push further, but the space between them felt charged now. Not with disagreement, but something weightier. Shared quiet, unasked questions, a fragile, widening awareness. He turned back to the lever. "Ready. Flip it," she said softly. He did. Water surged through the pipes. Somewhere outside, the vines began to drink. On the ride back, they passed the north terrace where she'd fallen. The workers were already clearing debris and rerouting the temporary drainage. Sophia watched through the window, thoughtful. "You fixed it fast," she said. "I don't like delays." She nodded. "You fix everything fast." Luca didn't reply. But this time, she thought maybe he didn't have to. Sophia hadn't planned to visit the cellar that afternoon. Her ankles still throbbed when she moved too quickly, and Luca's truck had jolted just enough on the way back to make her question her judgment. But something about the pump house conversation lingered. Like a thread she hadn't finished tugging on. The idea of Luca carrying the entire vineyard on his back, quietly, stubbornly, struck deeper than she expected. She understood pressure. She knew the burden of pretending you were fine while your insides reeled like film in an old projector. Constantly spinning, but never quite landing. So after a quick lunch and a moment's hesitation, she followed the path behind the olive grove that Luca had taken earlier, camera in hand and bandage tight around her ankle. The cellar was cool and dim, lit by thin shafts of sunlight filtering through high windows. Barrels lined the stone walls, stacked in rows like wooden giants waiting to wake. The air smelled of oak and fermentation, earthy, sour, alive. Luca was bent over a clipboard at the far end, his back to her, one hand braced on a barrel, while he scribbled something with the other. "You work more hours than the vines do," she said, her voice soft in the echoing space. He looked up, surprised but not startled. "Didn't expect you to come down here." "I was curious. And nosy. Possibly both." He set the clipboard down and straightened. "You shouldn't be on that ankle. Trust me. I've limped for worse reasons." She stepped forward slowly, glancing at the rows of barrels. "Is this where the magic happens? This is where the science happens. The magic comes later." "I like that." She took another step, then paused. "Do you mind if I take a few shots?" He shrugged. "It's your campaign." Sophia lifted her camera and adjusted the settings, capturing the play of light and shadow across the old stones, the curve of barrel hoops, the chalk marks that told stories only Luca seemed to read fluently. She lowered the lens and studied him. "You ever feel like this place owns you?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "Every day." There was no bitterness in it, just a quiet resignation. Sophia moved closer, the click of her muffled by the soft dirt floor. "So why stay?" "Because it's mine. Because I couldn't save my father, but I can save this." She stopped walking. Luca didn't look at her, but his voice had shifted, lower, rawer. He poured everything into this land. Every hour, every argument. It was all here. "So if I fail, it's not just my failure, it's his too." Sophia felt her throat tighten. She understood that kind of grief. The kind you couldn't bury, because it had roots in the earth beneath your feet. She moved to his side, leaning lightly against the next barrel, careful not to speak too quickly. You don't have to keep bleeding for it to prove you love it. His gaze slid toward her. What would you know about it? She didn't flinch. I stayed with someone for 3 years longer than I should have. Kept bleeding emotionally because I thought it meant I was loyal. That it made me stronger. But it didn't. It just made me tired. Luca's eyes flickered, the guarded expression shifting into something closer to understanding. Did you love him? He asked, almost too quietly. I thought I did, until I realized I was in love with the version of me he liked. Not the whale me. Luca looked away then, as if afraid the answer had struck too close to something he hadn't named yet. Sophia stepped back, giving him space. You know, you don't always have to carry everything alone. He turned slowly to face her. And you don't always have to prove you're fine. The words hit her squarely in the chest. She laughed softly, surprised. Are you calling me out? Gently. They stood in that space, between wine barrels and old silence, letting the weight of truth settle between them like sediment in a bottle. Then, as if to lighten the moment, Luca gestured toward a nearby ladder leading to a lofted catwalk overhead. Want the best shot in the cellar? Sophia raised an eyebrow. You're offering me access to your sacred perch. Don't make it sound romantic. But it kind of is. He sighed, walked over, and extended his hand again. Come on, before I change my mind. The view from the catwalk was spectacular. Wooden rows below, golden beams cutting through dust motes like magic. Sophia knelt carefully, balancing on her good leg, angling the camera just so. Luca stood behind her, a step or two back, watching quietly. I thought you'd hate this part, she said, not turning. The camera, the marketing, the selling of something that should just speak for itself. I do, he said. But I don't hate seeing it through your eyes. Sophia froze, finger hovering over the shutter button. She looked up slowly, and their eyes met in the dappled light. Something passed between them. Brief, wordless, and sharp. A pull. A truth they weren't ready to say out loud yet. That night, when she returned to the guest house, her camera bag heavier with images, and her mind heavier with thoughts, Sophia sat on the edge of her bed and whispered to herself, "Don't fall for him." It didn't sound very convincing.